Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Tzadik Vav. We are 12 lines from the top of the Amid. The Gemara yesterday discussed the concept of Shabbos Zman Tefillin, that the Tana of our Mishnah holds that Tefillin are meant to be worn on Shabbos as well, not only during the Yom HaChol, during the weekdays, but during Shabbos and Yom Tovim as well. It says the Gemara, who is that man, the Amar, that holds that Tefillin are meant to be worn on Shabbos? Uman Shamas le Shabbos is man Tefillin. Whose shita is this that holds that Tefillin are meant to be worn on Shabbos as well? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva. It's actually Rabbi Akiva. The Sanya, we learned in a Brisa, the pasuk says, "V'shamarta sachuka hazois." You're meant to safeguard, to watch this law, l'moyada, miyamim yamima, to go ahead and fulfill this chayk in its appropriate time, miyamim yamima. Now, this pasuk actually is contained in the parsha of Kadosh Li Kol B'chor, which is one of the 4 parshas of our Tefillin. Now, the psukim there discuss first the Korban Pesach, then proceeds to discuss Tefillin, and then concludes with this pasuk, "V'shamarta sachuka hazois," and miyamim yamima is referring to either one of those two. So, which one? Safeguard this law, this chayk, miyamim yamima, is it referring to Pesach or referring to Tefillin? So the Brisa here begins with the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, who maintains this reference. This v'shamarta sachuka is referring to Tefillin, and miyamim yamima is coming to teach us what is the appropriate time for laying Tefillin. Miyamim yamima, says the Gemara, yamim v'loy leilis, during days and not during nights. So there's no Tefillin at night. Miyamim is coming to exclude something. Only some days are appropriate for Tefillin. V'loy kol yamim, not all days. What are we coming to exclude? Prat l'Shabbos Yom Tovim. Divi Rabbi Yehuda. So according to him, this pasuk is a reference to Tefillin. It's coming to exclude nights and Shabbos and Yom Tovim. So according to him, Tefillin is really a mitzvah, has a shazman groma. It's a time-dependent mitzvah. It's only meant to be worn during certain times, during certain days. Rabbi Akiva Omer, no. Lo nemar chuka zu el in Pesach b'lvad. He learns that this v'shamarta sachuka hazois is a reference not to Tefillin, but rather to Pesach. And Tefillin are meant to be worn all the time. Days, nights, weekdays, Shabbos. Let's take a look at Rashi, which here is right off to the right. Beginning with the words Elul in Pesach. Da'iri bo le'el mina. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it's referring to Pesach, which is discussed earlier. V'hai miyamim yamima mishana l'shana. The word yamima is not in reference to days, rather 2 years. It's an annual mitzvah. The metargeminan, as the targum on the pasuk says, miyamim yamima means mizman l'zman, from time to time, meaning it's an annual mitzvah. Alma b'delay dorish Rabbi Akiva haikra b'tefillin. So apparently, since according to Rabbi Akiva, this pasuk is not in reference to Tefillin, then Tefillin has no limitations. Shema Mino, we learn from here, the Sfira lay that he holds, Laila v'Shabbos is man Tefillin. The loikam and ma'it lukra. According to Rabbi Akiva, evidently, went to wear Tefillin at night and on Shabbos, because no pasuk to be ma'it. This pasuk is actually not referring to Tefillin, it's referring to Pesach, which is meant to be fulfilled in Yom Mima, which means from year to year. So we have Alman Damar, Rabbi Akiva, who holds that Shabbos is man Tefillin. Says the Gemara, but if that's the case, then we have another kash. Ve'elohadesnan. If that's the case, then how do we understand the Mishnah, the beginning of Maseches Krisis, which provides a list of all the averis which entail kares. And the Mishnah tells us that there are actually 2 mitzvahs which entail kares, although they're not mitzvahs loisaseh. They involve neglect of a mitzvah's essay. Says the Mishnah like this: the snana Pesach v'amila. So these 2 are the Korban Pesach or Mila. If a person neglects these two things, it's a mitzvah saseh, which, by neglecting the mitzvah saseh, in this case, is a curse. So it's a chiddush because although there's no chatos, if a person inadvertently neglects these mitzvahs, a chatos is specific to mitzvah saseh. Nevertheless, there's curse if a person would ignore Karban Pesach and Mila. So the fact that this Mishnah references Pesach to mitzvahs essay and not to a lav, lemad like Rabbi Kiva. Perhaps it's inconsistent with Rabbi Kiva. Why? Dear Rabbi Kiva, because according to Rabbi Kiva, Kiva the mukila Pesach. Since he applied that pasuk that we discussed earlier, v'shamarta esachuka azois, he applied it to Karban Pesach. If that's the case, lav nami ika. Then why does the Mishnah Krisis merely describe it as involving a mitzvah's essay? It would appear that there's a lav involved as well. Why? Because what word does the pasuk use? V'shamarta esachuka. The word shmira equals loisase. Why? Just as he told us, the Amar Abin Amar B'loi, Kol Malkim Shenamar Hishamer Pen Va'al. Whenever you find a reference to one of these three terms, Hishamer, or Pen, or Al, these are three different descriptions of loisase. Einai Ela B'loisase. So the fact that the pasuk in reference to Karban Pesach uses the word V'shamarta, apparently there's a loisase like Karban Pesach as well. So according to Rabbi Kiva, Pesach really entails a loisase and doesn't seem to be consistent with that Mishnah that Pesach only involves an essay. Says Ma'afilu Tema Rabbi Kiva. Certainly that Mishnah increases can be following even Rabbi Kiva's Shita. Just because the pasuk uses the word v'shamarta doesn't necessarily mean it becomes a loisase, because v'shamarta merely means to safeguard. And if it's coming to safeguard a mitzvah loisase, yeah, then it becomes a loisase, meaning the Torah is telling you, look, be careful, don't do this. That results in a loisase. But if the Torah is telling you, look, be careful to fulfill this, then it doesn't automatically turn into loisase. It doesn't become a negative commandment. Actually, it's just reinforcing the positive mitzvah. I feel the Rabbi Kiva, he shamer the lav. When the pasuk uses the word shmira in reference to something you're meant to avoid, refrain from doing, yeah, that turns into a lav. But he shamer the asay. The Torah is telling you, look, v'shamarta esachuk hazois, safeguard this chayk, fulfill, be makayim mitzvahs Pesach. That doesn't turn into a loisase. Torah is merely strengthening and reinforcing the mitzvahs asay. So it works very well with that Mishnah Krisis, that all Pesach has is mitzvah saseh. Okay. Continues the Gemara. So you mean to say, according to Rabbi Kiva, we went to wear tefillin at night, and during Shabbos and Yom Tov? Really? V'savar Rabbi Kiva, Shabbos man tefillinu? Does he hold that we went to wear tefillin on Shabbos? Vatani, we have another brayso where Rabbi Kiva clearly tells us that's not the case. So it's actually not from that pasuk of a Shemarta Zachuka, because that's in reference to Karban Pesach, not tefillin. But there's another drasha from another pasuk, which teaches us that tefillin are not meant to be worn on Shabbos and Yom Tov. V'atanya Rekiva Yachal yanich adam tefillin b'Shabbos v'yom tovim. Perhaps a person is meant to wear tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Talmud leimar. The pasuk teaches us v'hoy l'chala'is al yadecha. The tefillin is meant to be an indicator, an ois, of your connection to Hashem. Misha tzrichin ois only applies to days that require this indicator. Yotzu elu. As opposed to these, what do you mean these? Shabbos, Yom Tov, shein gufan ois. They themselves are inherently demonstrators of your connection to Hashem. You don't need an additional indicator. You don't need an additional sign of your connection to Hashem and your commitment to Hashem's Torah. So tefillin don't need to be worn, are not meant to be worn on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Let's take a look at Rashi. It's about 10 lines down from where we're holding right now. Rashi begins with the words Misha tzrichin ois. So those days, Yomim, she Yisrael tzrichin lahamed ois al atzman. Only those days that Yisrael need to go ahead and display and advertise a sign, an indicator lahakir shemachzikim b'Torah shel Kadosh Baruch Hu, to indicate that they steadfastly fulfill Hashem's Torah. Then you need the tefillin to make that ois. Yotzu Shabbos Yom Tovim Sheina Atzman ois Ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. This comes to exclude Shabbos and Yom Tov, which in themselves provide that indicator, that sign of connection between Hashem and Yisrael. The Chsiv Ki Oisi Beini Benechem. There's another passage which says by Shabbos Ki Oisi Lo'ilam. So Shabbos and Yom Tov themselves, the fact that we keep Shabbos, refrain from Malach, etc., that itself is the biggest indicator, that sign, that ois, that we keep Hashem's Torah. And the tefillin are not meant to be worn in those days. So this is following Shitz Rabbi Kiva, who clearly tells us that no, Shabbos is not a time for tefillin. So evidently he is not the Tana of our Mishnah that holds that Shabbos is man tefillin. Says the Gemara, Ella Haitanu. Apparently it's the following Tanya. The Sanya, we learned in the Brisa, Haneir B'Layla, one who was actually up at night. So, Ratza Choylitz, if he wishes, he can wear tefillin, he can remove his tefillin. Ratza Meniach, if he wishes, he can put on tefillin. Divrei Rabbi Nassan. So according to him, tefillin are meant to be worn at night as well. Yoinas and Hakitoini Yoimer, Manichem tefillin B'Layla. He holds, no, tefillin are not meant to be worn at night. Says the Gemara. Now let's analyze the Shita of Rabbi Nassan. Mid Delilah, the Tanakama's man tefillin, from the fact that according to the Tanakama, which is Rabbi Nassan, tefillin are meant to be worn at night. So apparently, he doesn't have that drasha of a shamarta, sachuka zois, lamayado, yamima, in reference to tefillin, coming to exclude nights. He holds Laila is a time for tefillin. If that's the case, then Shabbos nami is man tefillin. Apparently, he holds that Shabbos is also izman for tefillin, because if you don't have that pasuk to be mamayit nights, then we don't have a pasuk to be mamayit Shabbos either. So look, we found an address. Amanda Amar holds that Shabbos is man tefillin. Says the Gemara, no. How do you know to connect the two things? V'du masrele Laila is man tefillin. Perhaps he holds, tefillin at night are meant to be worn. But Shabbos loves man tefillin. However, when it comes to Shabbos, perhaps he holds, no, tefillin are not meant to be worn on Shabbos. Why? The Hashamina Rabbi Kiva, because we found the same exact phenomena with Rabbi Kiva. First he said, the Amar Laila is man tefillin. He said that Laila is man tefillin. How do we know that? Because he held that there's no pasuk to be mamayit nights. Right? Rabbi Kiva was the one who held that the pasuk of Yamima is not in reference to tefillin, it's rather reference to Pesach. So there was no pasuk to be mamayit nights. But when it comes to Shabbos, Shabbos loves man tefillin. He certainly agreed that Shabbos is not a time for tefillin, not from the pasuk of Miyamim Yamima, but from the other pasuk of Ois. Right? So we have another pasuk to exclude Shabbos and Yom Tovim. So perhaps Rabbi Nassan will hold the same. Although when it comes to nights, there's no miyat for leilos, because that pasuk of V'shamata Sachuk Azais Yamima is not in reference to tefillin, so there's no pasuk to exclude nights. But when it comes to Shabbos, we have another pasuk that only days that require ois, but Shabbos and Yom Tov are not included in that. So we still don't really have a Mando Amar who clearly holds that Shabbos is a time for tefillin. Ella Haitanu. Apparently it's the following time. The Sanya Michal Bas Kushi. Hoysa Manachas tefillin. Michal, a daughter of Kushi. Who's Kushi? Shaul HaMelech. Why Kushi? The Gemara tells us elsewhere, just as a dark-skinned fellow is unique with his pigment, likewise Shaul HaMelech was a tzaddik and unique in his righteousness. So the daughter Micha Bas Kushi Hoysa Manachas tefillin, she would wear tefillin. V'lo Micha b'Chacham. Chacham didn't object. V'ishte shel Yoina, the wife of Yoina Hanavi. Hoysa Oila l'regel, she would come up to Beis HaMikdash, V'ali l'regel. V'lo Micha b'Chacham, Chacham didn't protest. It says the Gemara, Midlo Micha b'Chacham, the fact that the Chacham had no problem with it, Alma, apparently they hold Kesavri mitzvahs aseh shelo yazman gramahi. Apparently they hold that these mitzvahs. Now let's take a look at tefillin first. It's not a time-dependent mitzvah. It's not something which is meant to be fulfilled only during days and not nights, during weekdays and not Shabbos. Otherwise it would be considered a mitzvah shazman grama, which is time-dependent, from which perhaps women are exempt. The fact that they didn't protest, they allowed them to fulfill these mitzvahs. They allowed Michal Bas Kushi to wear tefillin. Apparently they hold it's an all-encompassing mitzvah. Tefillin are meant to be worn all time, 24/7. And therefore women are not exempt. And therefore they didn't object to wearing tefillin, because otherwise they should have been meicha. It's bal taisif. You're adding to your obligations, which is an issur. So here we have a shita that holds tefillin is an all-encompassing mitzvah. Shabbos, weekday, day, night. And apparently this brisa, this Tana in the brisa, will be the Tana of Al Mishnah. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. 6 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Says Rashi, Bas Kushi, Micha Bas Kushi was Bas Shok, Kedechsiv al Divrei Kush ben Mini, Dainu Shok, Darmini Be'elu Megalchen. The pasuk calls Shol with the term Kush to highlight his tzitkus. So they didn't object. Perhaps considered to be adding to the Torah. No, they had no problem with it. Why would it be considered adding? Because the Torah clearly exempts women from fulfilling mitzvahs that are time dependent. Likewise, we find that the Ishtay shel Yoina ben Amitai, she would be a regel, and the Chacham would not meicha. So apparently, says the Gemara, that they hold that tefillin is a mitzvah that shel lo yazman grama. Alma mitzvah tefillin kol shah gam b'layla gam b'Shabbos. It's meant to be fulfilled all times, Shabbos, at night. Why? Because if you would exclude any of those, havilu zman kavua, then the mitzvah would only apply during a certain set time, would be considered mitzvah seishas man groma, and nashma would be potter, and they should have been meicha, they should have objected, not allowed them to do these mitzvahs. So apparently the Tana here holds that the Chachamim there held that it was not a time-dependent mitzvah, and tefillin are meant to be worn on Shabbos as well. It says that we're not so fast. V'dilma perhaps, Savarla, Rabbi Yosi, this Tana of the brayso that we just learned, perhaps holds like Rabbi Yosi. The Amar Noshim Soimches Rishus. He said like this: although the pasuk clearly is memait women from smicha. Smicha is leaning on the carbon, which is really something you're not meant to do. One is not meant to lean on a carbon. It's called avodah b'kachim, deriving hana, pleasure from a carbon. But it's for the sake of mitzvah. Smicha is part of the process of the akrava. Then yeah, you're meant to do it, but only if you're obligated to do it. Somebody who's pater from smicha, such as noshim, Rashi brings the pasuk, b'nei Yisrael, it's excluding women. So how can they go ahead and do smicha? No, Rabbi Yosi says they can. Noshim soimches rishus. They can do it voluntarily. Even though they're not mechuyev, but they can connect themselves, they can apply themselves to the mitzvah, even though there's no real obligation. So perhaps this Tana, who described Micha Bas Shol as wearing tefillin, is following Rabbi Yossi Shita, that although tefillin is a time-dependent mitzvah, it is mitzvah seishas man gram, because there's no tefillin on Shabbos, and Nashim are really pater, but they can go ahead and involve themselves in mitzvahs that there's no chiyuv for them to do, just as smicha. They can do it rishus, voluntarily. And that's why there was no objection from the Chachamim to fulfillment of mitzvahs tefillin. Says Gemara, because if you want to follow this way of reasoning, how are you going to explain the Ishtay shel Yoina? Ishtay shel Yoina is oila l'regel. She would go up the regel, v'loy michaba, and nobody objected. Now, Mikal Amanda Omar regel lav mitzvahs aseh shesman gromo. Is there anybody in the world that's going to tell you that mitzvahs aliyah l'regel, which only applies during specified times of Yom Tov, is not considered to be a mitzvah hazeh shazman grama? Of course it is. There's no question that it is. So why then would they not moicha in her being oila l'regel? So you must apply this reason. Elokasava rishus. Apparently he holds that an Isha can do it voluntarily. Hachanami Rishus. Likewise, when it comes to tefillin, although it is perhaps a mitzvah sasei shazman grama, but an Isha can go ahead and fulfill even this type of mitzvah voluntarily. So, at the end of the day, we don't have a clear source of a Mad Omar who would hold that tefillin is not a mitzvah sasei shazman grama, that tefillin is meant to be worn on Shabbos, and we're still looking for a Tana of Al Mishnah. Ella Haitanahi, it's actually the following Tana, which indeed seems to hold that tefillin is a mitzvah sasei shelo yazman grama. It's not a time-dependent mitzvah, and it's meant to be worn at night and on Shabbos as well, and that will be the Tana of Al Mishnah. The Sanya, Hamaitze tefillin, person finds tefillin out in the open, he's meant to go ahead and bring it back into town to salvage it, save it from getting ruined, desecrated. Hamaitze tefillin, machnis and zug. He goes in and brings them in one pair at a time. We're speaking about on Shabbos. Echad ish, v'echad isha, whether a man or whether a woman. Echad chadashos, v'echad yishanos, whether they appear to be new, never worn, and it's not clear that they're even tefillin. V'echad yishanos, whether they appear to have been worn. As we explained in the Mishnah, we're speaking about straps that are really not tied right now. But if you take a closer look, perhaps you can see that they were formed into the Kesher Shel Tefillin, which is the shin, which is the dal and the yud. So chadashos means you don't really see whether they were tied as tefillin. In which case, perhaps you're concerned that they're not even tefillin. Perhaps a person designed his kamiyah, his amulet, in a tefillin shape. V'echad yishanis means you see clearly that it was used as tefillin. In either case, you can go ahead and wear them, bring them in to town to safeguard those tefillin. The very mayor, because he's not concerned that they're considered to be perhaps they're amulets. He's not concerned, as we're going to discuss a bit later in the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't do it when you found tefillin which were not apparently used, which are not apparently tefillin, not clearly used as tefillin. However, when it comes to yishanis, umati b'yishanis, he allows one to wear the tefillin which were old, meaning clearly discernible, clearly and visibly tefillin. So that's machlokes Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda pertaining to this side question. But when it comes to who is allowed to do this, is it specific to a man who has mitzvahs tefillin, or even an isha can go ahead and wear this tefillin even on Shabbos to bring it back into town to salvage the tefillin? And we consider it to be derech malbush. We consider it to be like an ornament. We don't consider this to be like a load. All agree that an isha and an isha are equal when it comes to that. Ad kan loy pligi, machlokes only pertains al b'chadash v'yishanos when it comes to this issue of new or old. I will be isha, but when it comes to allowing a woman to wear the tefillin, loy pligi, all agree that she can do so. Shema mina, apparently, we hear from this that mitzvahs sha'asei shelo yazman gramo. That tefillin is not a time-dependent mitzvah. And that's why, as we know, mitzvah say shelo yazman grama, women are chayiv, and therefore she can wear the tefillin even on Shabbos to bring it back into town. The Gemara is assuming that if an isha would be pater from tefillin, then we wouldn't allow her to strap on the tefillin and bring it into town. It would be considered like a load. It wouldn't have a din of a malbush. So what do we see from here? That apparently tefillin are meant to be worn on Shabbos, and it's not a mitzvah shesman grom and nasham achayiv, and that's why she can bring it into town. Says the Gemara, one second, why can't we apply the same teretz as we did earlier? V'dilma saval krabyeisi. Perhaps Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda both hold that actually tefillin are not meant to be worn on Shabbos. It's a time-dependent mitzvah. Why do we allow the isha to wear tefillin in order to bring it back into town on Shabbos? V'dilma saval krabyeisi. Perhaps he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar noshim samches rishus. So just as Rabbi Yehuda held that an isha can go ahead and lean on the curb, even though she's not really obligated to do so, she can do that. There's no concern of using the carbon, perhaps a bal toisif. There's no concerns, because an isha can do so voluntarily. The Torah allows for that, even though there's no chiv, but they can go ahead and do a mitzvah voluntarily. So just as that's applied to smicha, it can be applied to tefillin as well, or to any other mitzvah, say shazman groma. An isha can voluntarily decide to fulfill tefillin as well, even though she's not mechuyev in tefillin. And being that she has the ability to do so during the weekdays, so based on that, we regard the tefillin, even in reference to an isha, as an ornament, as a malbush, because she could go ahead and be makayim the mitzvah if she chooses to do so. So that perhaps explains why an isha can wear tefillin on Shabbos in order to bring her back to town. Don't bring a right from here that tefillin are meant to be worn on Shabbos and it's not time dependent and therefore an isha is chayv. No, it's not meant to be worn on Shabbos. It is azman grama. An isha is really potter. But just as by smicha, Rabbi Yossi holds that an isha can go ahead and voluntarily do smicha, even though she has no chiyuv. Likewise, at tefillin, she has the ability to wear tefillin during weekdays. So since she has that ability, then tefillin, even with regards to women, attains the status of a tachshit. And therefore on Shabbos, should she choose to wear tefillin to bring them into town, it is not considered to be a load. Says you can't adopt this approach. Why? The loy Rav Meir so like Rabbi Yossi, because Rav Meir doesn't appear to hold like Rabbi Yossi that the isha has the ability to fulfill rishus voluntarily. Loy Rabbi Yehuda so like Rabbi Yossi. Likewise, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold a Rabbi Yossi sheet. How do we know? Loy Rav Meir so like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi does not conform to Rabbi Yossi shita. The snan a ma'akvenes atanoik l'mitkoya. So on Rosh Hashanah, Bezin doesn't prevent the young boys from blowing the shofar. So generally, we're not meant to blow a shofar unnecessarily. So after the man fulfills the mitzvah, not meant to blow more. More tells us because it's the shvus midrabanan. We're not meant to do so. But little boys, we don't prevent. Gemara there speaks about it and tells us to give it a reason because of chinuch. So we're not meant to prevent them. Ha nashim ma'akvim. We have an inference here. Fine, tinoikis we allow, but women who choose to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, we don't allow them to do so. Apparently, because they have no chiyuv to blow shofar. Shofar is a mitzvah. It's just man grom. It's a time-dependent mitzvah, and we don't want them to blow because, as Rashi says, nirois k'moi sifais. It appears like they're adding to her fulfillment to obligations. It's about toisif. So that's the Mishnah of Rosh Hashanah. Women are prevented from doing something they're meant to do, that they have no obligation to do. Ustamasis and Rameir. The Mishnah here is an anonymous Mishnah, a Stam Mishnah, which is presumed to be Rameir. So here we have a Rameir who doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi. Because according to Rabbi Yossi, an Isha can choose to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, although she has no chiv, but she can do so because she has the ability to be Makayim, to say, Rishos, voluntarily. So there'd be no reason to prevent them from blowing. But according to the Mishnah there is an issa for women to blow, apparently. They can't go ahead and connect to those mitzvahs, even voluntarily. So here we find Rabbi Meir who doesn't hold Rabbi Yossi. That's one. V'lo Rabbi Yehuda savlik Rabbi Yossi. Likewise, Rabbi Yehuda as well doesn't hold Rabbi Yossi that an isha can do something rishus, even though she's not obligated. The Sanya. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'samach. This is the pasuk in the beginning of Vayikra. Speak to bnei Yisrael, and the pasuk there says v'samach yodai. He's meant to go ahead and lean his hand, his whole body on the carpet. And the drush is as follows: Bnei Yisrael semchen. Only Bnei Yisrael, the men, are meant to do smicha. Ve'ein Bnei Yisrael semchais, as opposed to women, are not meant to do smicha. So this is Danakama. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Aimer, Nashim semchas rishus. Although women are potter, but they can, if they choose to do so, they can be do smicha voluntarily. Now, who is the Tanakama? Ustam Sifra Mani. There's a Brisa in Teres Kana which is called Sifra. Who's the Stam, the anonymous Brisa here? Rabbi Yehuda. It's presumed to be Rabbi Yehuda. So here we have Shitz Rabbi Yehuda, who doesn't agree with Rabbi Yossi. He holds that Bnei Yisrael can't, even if they choose to do so, they can't do smicha. So apparently Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda don't agree with Rabbi Yossi's concept. Then Nashim are allowed to do mitzvahs, even though they're not chayiv to do them. If that's the case, how can they go ahead? When they find tefillin out in the field, they can go and wear those tefillin, bring it back into town, How can Rabbi Yehuda allow that? Why isn't it considered to be like a maser, like a typical load? Now you can't say it's because the Isha has the ability to wear tefillin during weekdays. She doesn't. She's not allowed to do something which she's not obligated to do. It appears like Baal Tosef. So the very fact that we allow an Isha to salvage tefillin by wearing the tefillin on Shabbos is the strongest indicator that according to Rabbi Yehuda, tefillin is not a mitzvah seishes van groma. It's not a time-dependent mitzvah. Why is that? Apparently they hold tefillin are meant to be worn at night, as well as on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. And since it's an all-encompassing mitzvah, it applies to women as well as men, and therefore an Isha as well can wear these tefillin on Shabbos because she's chayiv in tefillin, and therefore it's not considered to be a masui. So, conclusion: we have three shittas regarding this man tefillin. Basically, he holds nights, Shabbos, and Yom Tovim are excluded from the pasuk of Miyamim Yamima. Rabbi Akiva holds nights are included in the mitzvah. Shabbos and Yom Tov are excluded from the pasuk Ayvahalacha Lois. According to Rabbi Yehuda, nights and Shabbos and Yom Tovim are included in the chiv of tefillin, and indeed they seem to be the authors of our Mishnah, which holds that Shabbos is man tefillin. Continues the Gemara. Amar Belazar Hamoytzei Tcheles B'Shuk. If a person should find blue wool out in the street, he'd like to use them for his tzitzis. As Rashi explains, they need to be dyed lishma, with the intent to be used for mitzvah tzitzis. Otherwise, they are unsuitable for mitzvah tzitzis. So what happens to this blue wool we found in the street? Says Rabbi Lezer, depends. L'shoinais, if they're wads of combed wool, psulis, then they're unsuitable for tzitzis. Perhaps they were not dyed with the intent to be used for tzitzis. Chutin ksherun. If he finds threads, blue threads, then they're kosher, because apparently they were fashioned for the sake of tzitzis. It says Ramashna l'shoinis da amrinan adata de glima tzavinu. What's wrong with these wads of combed wool? Why they're not suitable? Da amrinan, we suspect, we're concerned that adata de glima tzavinu, he dyed them to be used for his glima, for his garment. If that's the case, chutin nami, threads as well. Neima adata de glima tavinu. Perhaps he dyed them and he produced them. Tavinu means he spun them. So he produced them for the sake of his garment. So fine, they're already formed into threads, into strings, but maybe he has in mind to use it for his glima, for his garment. How do you know it was done for the sake of its tzitzis? It says on b'shezurim. So shezurim is you take smaller strands and you spin it into thicker threads, into thicker strings, which indicates that it was done for the sake of tzitzis. Why then would he go ahead and make these thicker threads, thicker strings? So apparently, the point and purpose here was to use it for his tzitzis, and therefore it's kosher. Shezurim nami, even when they're shazar, neima data, this is sifsa, the glima aifinu. Even when he found these thicker threads, perhaps it wasn't for the sake of tzitzis that he produced them. Neima, let's say, adata the sifsa, the glima. It was for the sake of using them for the svas habega, the edge, the hem of his garment. Aifinu, that's why he folded them. That's why he double spun them. So these thicker threads are meant to be used, perhaps, for a person's hem, and not for it wasn't for the sake of tzitzis. But muvsakin, we're speaking that he found cut threads, and when he finds the threads in this fashion, it appears that it was produced for the sake of tzitzis. Why? Why else would he go ahead and cut the thread, and in order to use it for his hem, he would have to go ahead and retie them and put them back together? Why would he do that? The kuli haivadai, to such an extent, certainly loitarchi inchi, people don't trouble themselves, go through this unnecessary effort to go ahead and cut them to this certain size, and then go ahead and tie them back together and use them for the hem of his beged. So, although there's a chance that maybe he had some reason that he wanted his hem to have threads of this specific size and shape, but it's not probable. Why would a person exert himself unnecessarily? And it's more likely that they were produced for the sake of tzitzis. They were dyed lishma and they're kosher. Amar Rava. So Rava challenged this. So you say a person wouldn't unnecessarily exert himself, not necessarily so. V'chi adam tereach lasis kimia kein tefillin. Do you propose that a person would just unnecessarily exert himself to go ahead and make a kimia, this amulet, mint tefillin, to appear like tefillin? Is that logical? Certainly not. But we learned in our Mishnah that we suspect, we're concerned about that chance. Where do we see that? This nan, we learned in our Mishnah. So a person finds tefillin out in the Sada, he's allowed to wear it back into town. When is this applied? When these tefillin appear to have been formed, been used, been prepared for tefillin. When they're new, in which case there's no indication that they were used for tefillin, that they were produced for the sake of tefillin, that they're even tefillin. Perhaps they're amulets. Potter, then he's potter. He doesn't wear them back into town. Now, although we have perfectly shaped tefillin here, but if we have no raya, these are really tefillin, perhaps they're really amulets. Now, what are the chances that a person takes his amulet and forms it in the shape of a tefillin? Very, very slim chance. Apparently the Mishnah is concerned about even that chance. So we see that a person perhaps would exert himself unnecessarily. And that creates a concern for us. We don't allow him to go ahead and carry this tefillin. So likewise, when it comes to the threads which were chopped in a certain manner, which appears that they were prepared for tchelas, not necessarily was that the kavanah, perhaps it was not for the sake of tchelas, rather for the sake of his garment, in which case you should not be allowed to use them for tzitzis. Amar Rab Zera la'ava brei. So Rab Zera heard this kasha. He turned to his son, whose name was Ahava, and he said, look, Poik, go outside, Tanilu, go teach them a brisa, which actually supports Rabbi Lezer, that when we have indication that the thing was prepared properly, we don't go ahead and suspect perhaps it was for the sake of just some other use, and there was some tircha, unnecessary tircha, that a person exerted himself. No, we're not worried about that. We have a brisa which says clearly, a person finds blue wool out in the street, l'shonis psulim. If they're combed clumps of wool, yeah, they're puzzled for the tchelas, because we don't know if it was dyed for the sake of tchelas. But chutim of sakin ksher, when he finds these cut threads, then they're kasha. Lafi she'ein adam terech, because we have no reason to think that a person just was matriach himself to go ahead and form these threads, perfectly sized threads, for anything other than tchelas. So you have a raya to Belez. Ha'amar Rava, so Rava responded, Umishum de Tanela Ava Breder of Zera, just because Ava the son of Zera taught this brisa, Kipi Talala, did he hang up diamonds on this brisa? Meaning, fine, we have a brisa which supports Rabbi Lezer, that we're not concerned about a person unnecessarily exerting himself. The fact that they were formed, shaped in this manner, indicates that they were done for the sake of tzitzis. We have a brisa, fine, but what about our Mishnah, which indicates otherwise? And the Mishnah is certainly superior to a brisa. Vatnan, b'medva mamur b'yishames. Ava b'chadosh is potter. When do we wear these tefillin on Shabbos? Only when they're old. But when they're new tefillin, you're potter. You're not meant to wear them, to salvage them, to bring them back into town. Why? Because we're concerned that they are not tefillin. Perhaps they're a kamiyah, even though they're shaped as tefillin, because perhaps for some odd reason he decided to produce his kamiyah to look like tefillin. So we have a brisa, we have a Mishnah, that a person perhaps is matriach himself. Elam Rava, rather Rava says like this, look, it's actually machlekes tanoim. Torach, v'lo torach, the question of whether or not a person is matriach himself to form his kamiyah to look like tefillin, to produce his ordinary threads to look like tzitzis. It's a machlekes tanoim, whether we're concerned about that chance. Tanoi, what's a machlekes? The sanya. How much is it tefillin? Machlekes and zug. Person finds tefillin out in the field. You carry them in one pair at a time. Echad isha, echad isha. There's the brisa we brought earlier. So whether a man, whether a woman, Echad chadashos ve'echad yeshanos. So according to Rameir, whether new or old, there's no concern that they're anything but film. Why? Because the person is not Tireach to go make his commit to look like film. So apparently, Reb Lezer follows Rameir's Shita. Rabbi Yehuda b'chadashis. He says if they're new, you can't wear them in. Umat to be shanes. When they're old, yes. Alma apparently, Mar Savar Tarachinish. Rabbi Yehuda holds perhaps a person is matriach himself. In this case, he's perhaps decided to form his kamiyah to look like tefillin. Therefore, unless you're absolutely sure, you have indication that it's tefillin, you can't wear it on Shabbos. Umar Savar Lo Tarachinish. Rameir holds a person is not matriach. Let's not assume that a person goes ahead and produces his kamiyah to look like tefillin. And therefore, Rameir holds whether they're new or old, you have no reason to assume, to suspect they're anything other than tefillin. Wear them in, no problem. And apparently, Reb Lezer, who likewise holds that when these threads appear like they're produced for tchelas, there's no reason to assume otherwise, and they're kosher to be used for tzitzis. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. We had three shittas regarding Zman Tefillin. Rabbi Yehuda holds that from the pasuk of Miyamim Yamima, we might nights, because Yamim Leilis, and Miyamim only on certain days, when we might Shabbos and Yontif, because according to him, the pasuk of Shamarta Zachuka Zois, Miyamim Yamima is in reference to Tefillin. According to Rabbi Kiva, that pasuk is in reference to Pesach, not to Tefillin. Therefore, according to him, nights are considered Zman Tefillin. Shabbos and Yontif is a different story, because we have another pasuk. Tefillin are meant to be a sign of our connection to Hashem. Yotzu Shabbos Yom Tovim Shehin Gufanois. Shabbos and Yontif don't require this supplemental sign of tefillin. They themselves are inherently an ois, and therefore are excluded from its tefillin. Finally, we have Rabbi Yehuda, and the fact that they allow an isha to salvage tefillin by means of wearing them on Shabbos indicates that they hold tefillin is an all-encompassing mitzvah. Nights, Yom Tov, Shabbos included, therefore nasham achayev, and is not considered to be a load if they wear it on Shabbos. We concluded with the person who finds a tefillin, according to Rameir, whether new or old, you can wear them in, because according to him, a person won't unnecessarily be matriach himself to produces amulets to appear like tefillin. So we have all rights to assume this thing is tefillin. And likewise, Rabbi Lezer holds if a person finds tchelos out in the street, if they're threads, if they're shazer, they're spun as thicker strings which appear to have been produced for the sake of tchelos, they're mufsakan, they're cut into pieces. So we have all indicators that they were produced for the sake of tzitzis. In that case, they're kasha to be used for tzitzis. According to Rabbi Yehuda, well, if these tefillin are chadashis, in which case we have no indicator that they were produced for the sake of tefillin, perhaps they're just a kamiyah, then you can't wear them in. If they're yeshanes, then you can, according to Rabbi Yehuda. We are concerned that a person is matriach himself unnecessarily, and he just decided for some reason or other to form his amulet in the shape of a tefillin, and therefore you can't wear them in on Shabbos. We learned about noshim regarding mitzvahs to say shahazman grama. According to Rabbi Yossi, an isha has the ability to fulfill those mitzvahs voluntarily. According to Rabbi Yehuda, she does not. And the Taisus actually brings that we follow Rabbi Yossi's shita, that an isha can do these mitzvahs voluntarily. She can do smicha on the carbon, etc. In fact, Rabbi Tam holds that an isha can actually make a bracha on all mitzvahs to say shazman grama.